Hey class, welcome back. I hope you guys are all doing well today. We finally made it. We are now at our final lecture for World History 2, and we will be covering September 11th, 2001. We'll be looking at the reasons behind September 11th. We'll look at the attacks itself and some of the things that take place after September 11th in regards to the powers that were given to make war, to go to war basically in Afghanistan in 2001. But that's going to be it for this course, and I'll see you after the PowerPoint lecture, which we're going to have right now. Okay, class, this is our final PowerPoint for World History 2, and this is where the course is going to end with September 11th, 2001. And obviously you see on the title slide there, this is the attack by Al-Qaeda on the World Trade Centers. September 11, 2001, just some general information. It was a day where 19 Al-Qaeda militants hijacked 4 airplanes and carried out suicide attacks in the United States. 2 airplanes hit the World Trade Center towers in New York City. A 3rd airplane hit the Pentagon in Washington, D.C., and a 4th airplane crashed in a field in Pennsylvania. The 4th airplane believed to either be going to the Capitol building or to the White House, but that 4th plane was overtaken by the passengers, and it ended up crashing. Almost 3,000 people were killed, and it triggered a major U.S. offensive around the world to defeat terrorism, and the United States continues these operations to this day. These major offensives included the war in Afghanistan, and which is still continuing today, and also the invasion of Iraq in 2003. There's been other operations around the world in Africa, Somalia, different areas around the world to defeat terrorism. So September 11th it basically triggered a long list of military operations to take out terrorist organizations. And also the terrorist organizations, they also morphed and changed because you start thinking of the most recent offensives against ISIS, which they have been pretty much defeated. But there's ISIS, there was other uprisings that had to be quelled. So U.S. operations continue to this day. The reason was for the attack was Al-Qaeda leader Osama bin Laden declared a holy war against the United States. There is a long list of reasons that Al-Qaeda had, but basically it was a jihad against the United States for a couple of different reasons, which we'll get into. There's proof that Al-Qaeda was the perpetrators of this based on several different things. The first was bin Laden. He actually signed a fatwa, which is a ruling on a point of Islamic law by a recognized authority. So bin Laden, who was really never looked at as a terrorist by the United States, the United States knew that he was involved in possibly funding terrorism or something like that, but he wasn't like on the 10 most wanted terrorist list. But in 1998, he signed a fatwa for the killing of Americans in Africa. Basically, 200 people were killed at 2 U.S. embassy car bombings in Africa. So 2 U.S. embassies in Africa. There were some car bombings, 200 people dead, 4,000 injured, and Osama bin Laden, he signs this fatwa, which basically says, based on Islamic law, we should be able to do this. This is justified by Islamic law to commit these acts against the United States. It was then that the United States really started looking at him as somebody that was supporting terrorism, carrying out terrorist attacks, funding it, all of that. And with the combination of the Holy War and the fatwa, basically it was solid proof that Al-Qaeda committed this terrorist attack, and so then we could act against Al-Qaeda, mainly in Afghanistan, because Al-Qaeda was being sheltered by the government of Afghanistan called the Taliban. There's a picture of Osama bin Laden. He's dead. He was killed during Barack Obama's administration. Okay, so here's a continuation from the other slide, but down here on the bottom, I want you just to know that in 2002, letter from bin Laden, there were many reasons given in this letter for why they attacked, but mostly the reason for 9/11 was U.S. support of Israel and U.S. attacks on Muslims around the world. Now, that was his reasoning. Yes, U.S. does support Israel, and the U.S. does attack militant Muslims, so if they're a threat to the United States, because there had been a lot of problems around the world with militant Islam, and the U.S. was battling them. So bin Laden attacked the United States on September 11th. There's other reasons. You can get into capitalism. That they struck the World Trade Center because that's like the icon of capitalism and finances and all of that. You can get into those kind of reasonings. That was all in the letter that he wrote and put out to the world, basically, that this is why they attacked on September 11th. The attacks themselves. Again, if you lived through this, you never forget where you were when it took place. If you just want to know my little personal story of it, September 11, 2001, my wife and I had just dropped our first son, Jacob, off at preschool. He was a little guy in 2001, and he is now a junior here at Mid-America. He's going to graduate with his bachelor's degree next year. At the time of my recording of this video. We had just dropped him off at preschool, and we came out, my wife and I came out, got in the van, we had a minivan, we got in our minivan, and we had the radio on, and it said that the World Trade Center was hit by an airplane. Now, we lived in upstate New York at the time. We were about 4 hours north of New York City, up in the mountains of New York State, and we were shocked that an airplane hit the World Trade Center, but the first airplane that hit, it was, everyone thought immediately that it was an accident, that a plane had just crashed. And we drove home, and when we got home, we ran inside and put the TV on, and we could see the one tower was on fire, much like you see at the top of the screen here on your video, on the PowerPoint. And as I was watching with my wife on the TV screen, we saw the second plane hit live on TV. And when that second plane hit live on TV, immediately, it was without a shadow of a doubt. In fact, the news people that were talking, immediately we knew that this was an attack, that this was not just a second airplane crashing or something, that this was a purposeful driving airplanes into the towers. And little did we know that there was a lot of other things unfolding. So, on the screen, the attacks. Some terrorists had lived in the United States for about a year. Others were brought in just for a few months earlier. They smuggled box cutters into 3 East Coast airports, and they boarded 4 planes that were headed to California. All the planes that were headed to California had a large amount of fuel on the planes. That's why they chose those planes, because of the maximum damage that they would put on the targets. Soon after takeoff, all the planes were hijacked, and basically the evidence comes from some phone calls that were made about flight attendants being stabbed, pilots being stabbed, and the airplanes were hijacked. Attack number 1, 8:46 a.m., American Airlines Flight 11 was flown into the 80th floor of the North Tower. And of course, it's a big airplane, so 80th floor, there's different levels that would have been damaged. So the North Tower was attacked first. Attack number 2 was at 9:02 a.m. United Flight 175 was flown into the 60th floor of the South Tower. Attack number 3 was 9:37 a.m. American Airlines Flight 77 was flown into the Pentagon in Washington, D.C. And attack number 4 was 10:03 a.m. United Flight 93 crashed into a field in Pennsylvania after the passengers tried to recommandeer the plane. So the passengers actually revolted and tried to take the plane back, and it crashed into a field. So here's the map of the flights. So you can see 2 flights left Boston's Logan International Airport. And it's interesting with this map. We lived like right here where I'm circling with the cursor. That's where we lived. And little did we know, as we were dropping our son off at preschool, or that morning when we were getting him ready for preschool, an airplane was flying right near us to go down and attack the World Trade Center. So 2 flights come out of Logan and attack the World Trade Centers. Another flight left Newark, New Jersey, and this is Flight 93, and was taken control and turned around over Ohio and ended up crashing in Pennsylvania. And then another flight, Dulles International Airport, took off, was turned around, and then crashed into the Pentagon. Okay, so here's plane number 1 about to hit. Okay, and this was actually taken from a video. I believe they were interviewing a firefighter, or they were interviewing somebody here on the corner of the street, and this happened in the background. So you see the first plane hitting, and then this is the second plane hitting. There's the World Trade Center on fire from the Statue of Liberty. Here's people who were stuck above the fire. Many of them they could not get down through the fire escapes because the planes basically just destroyed so many floors. They weren't able to get down. These people are above where the plane hit. This is a very famous photo titled "Falling Man." This is obviously someone that knew that there was no hope, I guess, and so they decided to jump. And this was plastered all over magazines and newspapers on September 11th. After September 11th, the World Trade Center towers collapsed at 9:59 a.m. The South Tower collapsed, and 10:28 a.m. the North Tower collapsed. And my wife and I were standing in our living room, just couldn't believe it when they collapsed. It's interesting because I was at the World Trade Center in 1988. My family went to New York City from Pennsylvania. We were living in Pennsylvania, and I was there in 1988 as I was 12 years old. Everything was Batman because the first Batman movie had come out, and everything in New York City was Batman. And we went to the World Trade Center and went to the top of it, to the observation floor. It's not outside; it's actually a floor, and you could walk up to the glass windows and see the whole city. And I remember standing between the 2 World Trade Center towers. There was a large cement quad or like courtyard type thing between the 2 towers, and I remember standing between the 2 towers and looking up and just seeing how tall they were. It was just unbelievable how tall they were. But the 2 towers collapsed. You can see the debris falling here. This picture. 5:21 p.m. World Trade Center number 7 collapsed because debris fell. When these towers collapsed, debris fell on World Trade Center 7 and caught that building on fire, and that burned all day, and then that building collapsed. The World Trade Center is a complex. There's a lot of different buildings to it, and World Trade Center 7 is a smaller building, but that also collapsed. Here's a picture of firefighters in the debris. People running as the tower collapsed. The U.S. response, September 14th, 2001, so just a few days later, U.S. Congress passed the authorization for use of military force against terrorists, and this gave the president the authority to use all necessary and appropriate force against terrorists. And this authorization is still active today. That's why President Bush was able to go do what he did. President Obama was able to do what he could do, and even today, President Trump is able to do what he does against terrorism because of that passage of that act. October 7th, 2001, the war in Afghanistan began. The United States and Great Britain began bombing Taliban and al-Qaeda forces in Afghanistan. And there's a very famous picture of a flag being hoisted up by some firefighters of the FDNY. A very deadly day for the FDNY. It was 383 firefighters killed, I believe, as they were charging into the towers and helping people out when the towers collapsed. And that's going to be it for this PowerPoint. I'll see you in a second. Okay, class, that's it for World History 2. We've covered the final lecture with September 11, 2001. And next up is going to be the exam, which is next week. And so the final exam. So I will put a study guide up on Moodle. And maybe by the time you're watching this, you've already printed off the study guide and you've already put in some of the answers. But the final exam will be covering from Pearl Harbor with World War II, Pearl Harbor, all the way through September 11, 2001. So it's quite a bit of information. The exam will have 75 questions on it, all multiple choice. So it shouldn't be too difficult because hey, the right answer's there. You just have to pick it. So other than that, I don't have anything else. I really enjoyed the course, and I hope you guys enjoyed it also. I hope you guys learned new things. I hope you guys also learned maybe with some improvement on writing and writing papers. For some of the students that I had in World History 1 and now in 2, I definitely could see some great improvement on writing skills just on the papers that I assigned. So I hope you guys enjoyed your own research there with your papers and the topics that you picked and researching those, and also were able to improve on your writing skills for future college writing that you're going to have to do. Okay, other than that, I don't have anything else. Take care.